All right, we're back with a quick fix video, another one. So this is an Amiga 2000 on the bench. It has the usual NiCad battery that leaked all over it. I had to replace the CPU socket. You'll notice exposed copper because I used the Dremel to clear that away. And I did find two bad traces from the clock chip to a couple of the vias there. That's these two spots. So there's some bodge wires on the bottom, but everything on the CPU seemed okay. Before doing this, there was a bunch of green crusty in there on the CPU socket, and it wouldn't even boot, wouldn't do anything. It was just totally dead, not executing code. So this is the original CPU back in. I did Dremel the two pins or couple pins that were corroded over here, but it's in a new socket. And with the original Kickstart ROM 2.04, this thing will just basically show green screen and then crash. Look like it's kind of booting, but then reboot continually, so not working. So I have the Amiga Diagnostic ROM in there, 1.3. And let's turn on the machine, and I want to show you what this thing does. So this is the normal boot process for this diagnostic ROM. All this stuff is typical. And what it's supposed to do is it does this for a little while, and then you should get an on-screen menu. And what's cool about this is this will give you a lot more information about what's wrong, potentially with your machine, than you would get otherwise. So it is doing its thing right now, and then that's it. This is what it does. It just goes to a black screen. So it's not working properly. That is not how it's supposed to work. Well, what you can do is you can hook up a no modem cable from the serial port, which is under the power supply there, up to your PC, whatever, laptop or something, 9600 baud, at least with this older version of the ROM. And we can bring up the terminal emulator, and I'll turn the machine back on. And what this does is it will clear the screen here, and it will start telling you exactly what it's doing. Oh, it's not doing that because I was in the scroll back buffer. All right, we'll spoil it. There it is. Okay, so now it's doing its normal boot process. And what you can do is right now, you can push a key on the keyboard, and now you have a menu over serial. So you can pretty much do all the tests through this, but what's happening is if you try to do any of the graphics tests, they don't work. Okay, so that's a problem. Other weird things, it's detecting 512K of chip memory, no fast memory. Well, the Amiga 1000 has 1 meg of memory on here, so it should have, well, with the older Agnes chip, it should have 512K of chip, 512K of slow. But this happens to be, this is a fat Agnes. It's a 69-02, and that's just deoxid in the socket there. I was just testing. So this actually supports 1 megabyte of chip memory. So all of this should be chip memory, but it's only showing up as 512. Oddly enough, the Denise is the old OCS Denise. So someone kind of upgraded Agnes without upgrading Denise. I don't know what's up that, but that normally you do both. All right, well, if we go back to the main menu, 9, let's see here. Okay, and let's go to memory test. This computer is acting very odd. It starts doing the RAM test, and then it will crash. There it goes. Or it's detecting some bad memory. It's sort of random what this is doing. Here we go. It's saying like bad bits, number of errors. Eventually, the diagnostic ROM will crash, and it will reboot. Well, it's funny. I've run this a bunch of times, and it definitely normally reboots, but it's not doing it right now. How hilarious is that? What I'm going to do is I'm going to power cycle the computer just so we can show it doing that rebooting thing. So this is the normal boot process for the diagnostic ROM. That is when you're hooked up with serial. So I do recommend doing this if you're trying to diagnose an Amiga, because as I showed on this one, you're not even getting any on-screen menus at all. Push enter. We do memory test. Detected chip memory test. Okay, this thing is acting, well, it's very random what it does. Notice it's different now, like the errors. Sometimes it will completely crash. It will restart the diagnostic ROM. It just does all sorts of weird random things, but saying there's all sorts of bad memory. So you might be like, okay, well, let's try doing a manual memory test. And I'm going to test from, I don't know, 8,000 to 8FFF. Oops, this keyboard doesn't work super great. Okay, what is happening here? Backspace key does not work. Okay, well, this is not a great test. Either way, normally you can run that test manually, and don't know what's up with my keyboard. It's Amiga 2000 keyboard, and these are notoriously flaky. The enter key on this one is starting to flake out. You have to push it really hard to get it to do anything. We'll try this one more time. I just want to kind of show that, hit enter. We do memory test, manual memory test 7. Try this again. 8,000 and 8 FFF. 1. Okay, there we go. It crashed. Unimplemented instruction, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is the kind of thing I was doing. It's completely random. Sometimes it reboots. It's all over the place. Well, I started thinking, like, what could be wrong? Maybe we have an addressing issue. Maybe we have bad RAM. Maybe the Agnes is bad. That's why I took it out, put it back in with Deoxit. You know, the CPU could be bad. There's all sorts of potential problems. This machine's unknown to me. I just was given this, so I don't know much about it. Well, I had an idea. Looking at this, I notice there's like some pins right here. And I'm noticing over here there's a jumper. What if there's like jumpers on here that somehow configure memory and they're not configured correctly? Well, after doing a little bit of reading, turns out that's exactly what's going on. See these 3 pins right there next to the power connector? Those are critical. I'm going to turn the power off. Those are critical for determining the RAM size. And when you have one of these, the Fat Agnes with the O2, that supports all 1 megabyte of memory, this as chip memory, well, you either need to have a jumper on pins 1 and 2 or on 2 and 3. You can see the 1 right there on the right side. And it turns out the configuration for, oops, sorry about that, bad filming with my phone. Turns out the configuration for 1 meg of chip memory, which is what you get with this chip, is on 2 and 3. But it looks like you have to have this set either 1 and 2 or 2 and 3. And this has to do with the addressing. And I think if that's set wrong, the system's not going to work. So let's try it with that on 2 and 3, which is the 1 meg config. Turn the computer back on. And let's see what we get. So one thing we'll be able to tell is if this detects 1 meg of chip memory, that will be good. And let's see what happens. Okay, well, right off the bat, we have a difference because the on-screen menu, this is coming from RGB on the Amiga, is now working. So we have both serial and we have that. 1 meg of chip memory is detected. That is good. Let's try memory tests now. So you can do this both through serial and through on-screen displays. Well, would you look at that? It's freaking working. That was the problem with this machine. I'm not super familiar with an Amiga, the 2000, even though I had one of these as a youth when I was younger, in college that is. I don't recall ever touching any jumpers on this thing, but obviously that should have been set. I mean, there's a jumper there on that one, but there's nothing on there. There's another jumper that's relevant. It's this J500, but notice there's no pins installed, so that's not something you can easily change without clearing out those holes and installing those jumpers. So let me fix the zoom on the thing. This is still just running. It is just freaking running. So 1 meg of chip memory is up to there. What is that, 100,000? So we're almost there. So let's see if it passes the chip memory test. I assume it will say memory pass 2 once it starts testing the second pass. But look at that. No bad memory, Oki data RAM on this motherboard. All that weird randomness, and let me tell you, it was way random. I was trying all sorts of things in here with the memory test, and none of it made sense. It was so random what it was doing. It was crashing. And I think what's happening is it created mirrors inside the memory. Yeah, there we go. Good block. I think it's, I don't know what it's doing. It's doing an address test now. I think what happens is this diagnostic ROM to run, it uses part of chip memory. It sits itself up at the top of chip memory. So it thought it had 512K, it stuck itself at the top, little workspace. And I think what was happening, because the addressing was floating, maybe it was just randomly changing. And there it goes, we're on pass 2. So looks good. I think what was happening was it stuck itself up at the top of the 512K, the workspace. And then as it tested the memory, that address line was not connected and not working. And I think as it tested memory, it would overwrite its workspace memory, which would cause the diagnostic ROM itself, the routines, to crash. That's my hunch. In fact, let's just take this jumper off while it's running and we'll watch what happens. There it is. Oddly enough, it sort of just stopped testing. And it's kind of going. But notice the graphics are no longer updating. Actually, it's just crashed. Oh yeah, it's crashed. Maybe it was updating. Yep. Well, let's put the jumper on the 1-2 configuration, the other config. I want to see what that does exactly. Is that right? All these pins are bent. This is totally a cell phone video off the cuff. I was going to do a repair video here, a more in-depth one. And then I read the thing about the jumper and I went, oh, it's not installed. And then that's why I'm doing this little quick fix video. I think, okay. So there it goes. It's running. And yeah, 512K, but we have good graphics. So that tells me that I'm assuming it's configured the memory for 512K of chip and 512K of slow memory. It shows down here we have no fast memory, but how do we see the actual full amount of memory? System info maybe? I don't remember if this shows anything. No, it doesn't show anything. I'm not sure this thing can actually show us extended chip memory, complete memory detection. That doesn't do anything. I think the new version of this ROM is a little bit more fancy. Auto config. Yeah, there's no cards installed. Okay, well anyways, who knows? Obviously this has to be installed, and with it removed, the computer just crashed entirely. So let's pop it back in on the correct space. Computer is still crashed. And we power cycle it, and I assume the system is working. In fact, let me pop the original Kickstart ROM back in, and let's see what happens. Original 2.04 Kickstart is back in. Let's power this up. I think that's normal. Maybe. There's no floppy drive hooked up. I mean, I don't know. This computer might be broken still in other ways. Oh, there we go. Yes. So there it is. Today I learned that jumper, if it's not installed, the computer is completely crashy and does not work properly. I'm frankly surprised about that it doesn't have a pull-up resistor installed, so that when it's not installed, it still does work. But I guess, you know what it's not doing? I think this is actually routing address lines to maybe Gary over here, or Agnes. I don't remember what it's doing exactly. I didn't look at the schematics. Just the thing I read said that it has to be in one position or the other. So there we go. If you have an Amiga 2000 that's acting randomly crashy and not passing any of its memory tests, incidentally, I tried the Logica Diagnostic ROM as well, and that totally didn't work. It would run and then crash as well. So if you're having an Amiga 2000 that does that, check for jumper J101. Make sure that that's actually installed, because that keeps the computer from working entirely. I'm just freaked out. Let's take it off while it's running here. Boop. Instant crash. There we go. Who knew that a jumper is so critical for operation of the machine? There we go. Today I learned. So there is a quick fix. That's it. Bye.